if we are Christians, that should mean certain things for our beliefs and the way that we operate in the world. And if we don't believe certain ways and we don't operate in the world certain ways, then can we really say that we are Christian? Today I'm going to be talking to you about a book that I just recently finished called Faithfully Different. The subtitle is Regaining Biblical Clarity in a Secular Culture by Natasha Crane. And as always, I'm not going to give like a full book review, but I'm just going to talk about a couple things that stood out to me about this book. And I actually would recommend this book. I think it's good. But one thing I found really interesting was she shared some statistics on people who identify as Christians. And one of the things she shared was Barna research on what they consider a biblical worldview is it's these things. One, that absolute moral truth exists. Two, that the Bible is totally accurate in all the principles it teaches. Three, that Satan is a real being or force, not just merely symbolic. Four, a person cannot earn their way into heaven by trying to be good or by doing good deeds. Five, Jesus lived a sinless life on earth. And six, God is the all-knowing, all-powerful creator of the world who still rules in the universe today. And so that's like Barna's definition, I guess. Those things, if you agree with those things, you have a biblical worldview. It was interesting to me because it leaves out at least one key thing I think Christians should or must believe in to be called a Christian, which is that Christ died and then rose again from the dead. That's like a key, Christian doctrine. That's not even in there. But even so, out of Christians who are polled, so these aren't, all people. These are Christians, and they're Christians who consider faith an important part of their life and attend church regularly, right? So not even just all Christians, but Christians who attend church regularly and they consider faith important. Only 17% of those Christians actually agree with all six of those statements that Barna considers a biblical worldview, which I just thought was pretty wild. But that's kind of why she's even writing this book, right? It's about regaining biblical clarity in a secular culture. And really the idea is that if we are Christians, that should mean certain things for our beliefs and the way that we operate in the world. And if we don't believe certain ways and we don't operate in the world certain ways, then can we really say that we are Christian? Which she doesn't really quite pose it that same way, but it's a question worth, considering, I guess. But she also talks about what the biblical worldview is and what should we believe as Christians if we consider ourselves Christians. I thought that was an interesting section as well. One chapter that I really liked was chapter 7. It was called Reclaiming What Rightfully Belongs to the Biblical Worldview. And in it, she talked about morality, human rights, and freedom. And specifically, she talked about how those things actually fit into a Christian worldview better than they fit into a secular worldview. Basically, she talks about how morality, human rights, and freedom don't really fit into a secular humanist worldview, but they do fit neatly into a Christian worldview. And I particularly thought that chapter was really good. Another chapter I thought was really good was chapter 4, Regaining a Supernatural Worldview under the Pressure of Secular Naturalism. And she just engages with kind of these challenges made against Christianity. Like religion is anti-reason, anti-science, and anti-evidence. Religion is an emotional crutch. Religion is the result of brainwashing. Religion is childish. Religion is harmful. And she actually kind of talks about those viewpoints and then talks about building a case for the existence of God, understanding evidence and why people respond differently to evidence, 3 arguments for the existence of God, and the most reasonable explanation for the evidence. And so even understanding the nature of science, right? And I just think that was a really good chapter as well, because she kind of she doesn't shy away from like, hey, these are the things that people are saying and here's how we can respond to them, which I just think is healthy, because those are generally the buttons people are going to press. They're going to talk about naturalism. They're going to talk about empirical evidence. They're going to talk about just ask these different questions, and she's kind of just owning it right up front. And then she's talking about it and then even giving some tools that you can use or some different things that you can study, learn. So I thought that was really a really good chapter and really helpful as well. Overall, I thought the book was really good. That's not all that it's about. I'm skipping over a lot of details here. But again, I'm just pointing out a couple things that I liked about it, whether or not I think it's worth reading. I think that it is. I think, especially if you consider yourself a Christian, a believer, there's some things in here worth looking at, worth thinking about, as well as some encouraging things in here about just what do I do when somebody raises challenges against my faith, or how do I respond when I have doubts in certain areas, or when the culture that I'm in says this, but I believe this, how do I deal with that? And there are just some good things in there about that as well. One criticism that I would give is that in one section, she talks a lot about woke culture. And I just think that it could take away from the validity of her arguments or what she's trying to say, because I think as soon as you use that term woke culture, you automatically align yourself on one side of kind of a cultural debate right now. And even though I actually think her arguments are good, they're sound, they're cogent, they're coherent. I think that it will automatically turn some people off. Even though I do think generally what she's saying is true and right. And you could ask the question, well, then why does it matter? And maybe it doesn't. It just might be more proof of how kind of the pressure of the social pressure of the conversation happening right now in our culture makes people a little uncomfortable to talk about things, because as soon as you say something like woke, then you're automatically judged a certain way. But that would be my maybe one criticism that I have. But overall, I think the book is good. I think her arguments are good. And I think that as a Christian, it's stuff worth looking at, worth thinking about. One other thing that she does is she actually includes resources at the end of every chapter, where if you want to read more on the topics that she's talking about, she's not being completely exhaustive in them, but she actually gives a bunch of resources at the end of every chapter of additional reading that you can go through and look at. And I thought that was really valuable as well. Again, the book is called Faithfully Different, and I would recommend it. I think it was a good read, a good book. It wasn't super dense or super hard to read. It was really accessible, but was still kind of packed full of information. And if you're a Christian, I think it's definitely worth reading. If you like this kind of content, do me a favor, click like, go ahead and click subscribe, click the notification bell so you get notifications when I post new videos. And do me a favor, jump in the comments. Let me know, have you read this book? What do you think about it? Do you have any questions about any of the stuff that I said? I know I'm not incredibly thorough with these, but would love to engage with you in the comments. I try to respond to comments as long as they're not, completely ridiculous. And so would love to hear from you. Thanks again for watching, for hanging out for a couple minutes, and have a good day.